Tonight, we have Mary Walby joining us from 3 time zones away in Washington State. Mary has spent 15 years rehabilitating senior horses from a holistic perspective. Her work began with a 26-year-old gelding who cribbed constantly until Mary created an environment that met his needs and the habit disappeared. This sparked her ongoing study of what older horses need to thrive, eventually expanding into the natural dying process and equine hospice care inspired by human hospice models. Trained for a decade in the martial art of, forgive me if I pronounce this wrong, Mary, you can correct me, Aikido?
Aikido, yes.
Great. Um, which I had to look it up, but it's rooted in the principles of calmness, timing, and empathy. And Mary has found that training has translated beautifully into horsemanship, where she aims to blend with a horse's energy and intentions instead of overpowering them. Mary brings calm, centered, and empathetic interactions to her work. She shares her knowledge through various methods, including consultations and online classes. And I just want to put a plug out that tonight's talk is sort of a special bonus to the usual speaker series lineup, in that we hope that it provides a complement to our UMaine Extension mortality management composting workshops, so our carcass composting workshops, that this will provide an emotional element that those curriculums don't normally have. So something that brings the emotional element into something that can be really hard for some people. Um, Mary, we're so happy to have you. And with that, please take it away.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here, and it's wonderful to share this information with you. And I learned this through the School of Hard Knocks, and Hard Knocks can be really brutal at times, and it can also be incredibly beautiful. So I share everything I've learned just so that other people don't have to try to recreate the wheel all by themselves. But grieving when we lose our animals or family members, it's unique to each person. Our relationships with other people, with animals, are unique. So the grief will be unique. But what is the same, because we're human being, is that there is a process of grief that happens. And the reason we grieve is because we love. So sometimes grief is messy. Sometimes we wish we would get done with it sooner. But ultimately, grief is a gift, and it's in a sense the price we pay for loving. And so for me, I don't want to ever stop loving like that. I don't want to ever stop that. So then I go, okay, well, now how do I process the grief and that side of being alive? So I'll share everything I've learned, and whatever resonates with you, take that. If it doesn't resonate, don't take it. It's not for you. Um, Everyone is so different. And so I really want to honor how different all of us are, how different our relationships are with our animals. And there is no right or wrong way to grieve. There's just really how do we listen to ourselves and what does that look like for each of us? And so humans grieve, animals grieve. Like I have no question, animals grieve. I've seen cows grieve, I've seen horses, and I've seen um, cats and dogs, goats. You know, you're around this enough and you start observing a lot these animals, and it's like, okay, they grieve too. What I find really helpful with witnessing how animals grieve is that I learn things from them, and then it helps me in how I grieve and how I process grief. So before we begin, I just wanted to check in with everyone and see what brought them to the webinar today. I mean, grief is not necessarily a hot button topic everyone wants to talk about. So I'm just curious to know why you're here, like what you're hoping to get out of it, maybe what animals you have or what challenges you faced with losing your animals in the grief process. So if you have anything you'd like to share, just go ahead and put it in the chat, and then you can read that to me.
And folks, like I mentioned at the top, if the chat function is not visible, go ahead and plop this into the Q&A. We'll give this a solid minute. Like Mary said, like what do you hope to get out of this? What, if you want to share what you're going through or, anything in particular that Mary can touch on here for you. Mary, we have one in the chat here. I lost my heart horse 2 weeks ago, and I feel so lost without him. I'm hoping to learn the best ways to cope with his passing and to be able to move forward after such a sudden and painful loss.
Yes, I can appreciate that. We will be talking about things that hopefully will help. But yes, and whoever wrote that, my heart goes out to you because it's very hard to lose a horse. They have such a big presence in our lives. I mean, their energetic presence is bigger than ours, and when they die, there's now that hole, and it's like, and you just realize how big they are, and how much they affect our lives. So yes, it is. It is hard, but there is hope, and there is ways to integrate the loss. So thank you for the comment, and hopefully we'll have some ideas for you that can help you. Are there any other chats, or is that the only one?
That is the only one right now.
Okay.
Oh, someone
Oh,
just came in.
okay.
I was hoping to see the acknowledgement that animals also grieve and need to
Oh,
be given the time and space to grieve in their way.
yes, yes. That's beautiful. Yes, I totally agree. Yes, animals grieve. Yes, and I'll be giving examples of animals grieving, and then us grieving, and then how it's actually very similar. And so, yes, you're in a place where, yes, I believe. Well, I know I've seen it, and animals grieving. So, um, thank you. Are there? Maybe I should just start, and then if there's others that come in the chat when we come to the next break, maybe share them.
Yeah, I think that's good. And someone just messaged me that they'll be
Oh,
logging on a little late too. So I
oh,
think we
okay.
can keep this going. Sure.
Okay, wonderful. Okay. So in this webinar, the four things I'm going to talk about is what do you do in the moments right after the death occurs? And what we do in those moments can influence our grief, like how we handle those moments. So the second thing I'll be talking about, okay, what do you do in the weeks, days, months following the death? So it's not so raw necessarily as it just happened, but it's still present. And then I'll answer the question, what if the death happened in a way that you say you wanted to be there and you couldn't be there? Or say the circumstances were one way and it really bothered you that it happened that way and you wanted it to happen a different way, but you can't do anything about it because it already happened. So I'll talk about what to do with that if you're ever in that situation. And then lastly, I'll talk about what to do if you've done all these things I've talked about and still the death really bothers you. And this sometimes will tap into when it's a traumatic death, and there is hope there too. So the good news is that we are human beings and our body is designed to grieve. Like, it can do it. Yes, it can be painful, but it can do it, and it's okay. And it's actually good to feel the pain. And there's a way to process through it and then come out on the other side and then integrate that loss to where, when I think of all my horses, I've had several that have died. I just have such joy when I think of them. But each of them, it was a painful process in grieving them. So these are the topics we'll cover. And I want to start off with a story. A friend of mine had a herd of goats. And one evening she called me. I was talking to her, and one of the goats was dying, and it was a little baby. And she was wondering, is it suffering? Should I euthanize the goat? And she wasn't sure. And I said, well, tell me, like, what's the goat doing? And I was familiar with natural death. So I just wanted to see, is this goat dying well? And is it peaceful? And if so, just let it play out. So she said, oh, well, the goat's, laying down, sort of quiet, not really doing anything, sort of almost not comatose, but it's starting to go to sleep, or just, it's not in this world for much longer. And the mom goat was close by and she was calm. I said, well, it looks like everybody's calm. So just let this play out. The goat will die, and probably sooner than later. And, just sort of monitor. And if something happens and you need to do something, then that's okay, do it. But it looks like the mom's providing comfort. Goat is peaceful, so it's okay to let it play out. So later that night, the goat did die. Now, the mom goat stayed with the baby and ended up staying with the baby the good part of the next day after the baby had died. So she stayed with the body. And then by the end of this first day, she sort of lost interest in staying with the body, and then she's reintegrated with the herd of goats. But what I like about that story is that the mother was just present for what was happening. She was present for when the baby goat was dying, providing comfort. And then when the baby goat actually did die, she stayed with the body. And that's something that we can do right at the moments after death happens, is to stay with the body. Now, one thing I want to just touch on, in case no one's familiar with the natural dying process, I just want to talk about it briefly. Western veterinary medicine, they don't teach this in veterinary school. So unless a veterinarian has had training in natural death and hospice care, they don't have any training. And so what happens is sometimes they will think that stages of the natural dying process are painful when they're really not. So I just want to touch on it. If you want more information on it, I have articles on my website about the natural dying process. Not everyone has to do the natural dying process. It's fine not to, but if you want to, I just want to make people aware of what it looks like. So the natural dying process is generally not painful. If there is pain going on, it's typically due to a painful medical condition. So when you're in the natural dying process, there will be a stopping of eating, usually a week before death. Stopping drinking typically happens 2 days before death. In this process, they tend to lose muscle tone, and there'll also be a withdrawal of attention from the immediate environment. So they'll seem like they're not totally here. Now, that's not painful. That's just their body is shutting down and sort of moving into the next world, which is no longer in physical form. So the stages of dying are a little bit, there's more to it than just what I described. But if you're interested in that, on my website, seniorhorserehab.com, go to the resources tab, and there's a dying page on there, and the article is on there. So if you want more information on that, that's where you can find it. Okay, so let's go to the death has just happened. Now, what do I do? Okay, so as human beings, it's really easy to want to start to do things, like start to make the arrangements. Okay, now I got to bury the body. I have to clean up. I have to, whatever it is I have to do. And they talk about this in human hospice. When someone dies after being in hospice care, they say, you know what, just pause for a moment, like maybe an hour, and don't do anything. Like just maybe you just sit down and take in the fact that this is just like what has just happened. And so I like to say, breathe, relax, feel. Those three things help me get in touch with my own body. And so some moments like this, they happen once in a lifetime. So when my horse dies, it's only going to happen one time. It's not going to happen again. I don't get a redo. I don't get to try to do it later if I didn't like something. It happened. And so if I can pause right there and not do anything and maybe just take a breather, that is really good. What we're trying to do is allow time for our internal emotional reality to come up to speed with the external reality that the animal has just died. And so it takes time for our emotional insides to come up to speed with this external reality that the animal has died. So what happens is if people move too fast here, or if we move too fast and our emotions aren't allowed time to come up to speed, then it creates a stress response. So this horse here, this paint mare, she's the pasture mate of my horse that died. My horse that died's under the tarp. And he died on a Friday night. There's no pickup on the weekend of a horse's body, so I had to wait till Monday. But the temperatures were very cold at night, so the body kept. That wasn't an issue. But what was interesting is the first night we could not cover the body. If we covered the body, this paint mare totally freaked out. She ran the entire 8 acres. She went to every single place on that property where she smelled the horse, where he last passed a manure pile, where he last ate, everything he had done. And I watched her run. I thought, oh my gosh, she is literally going to every little nook and cranny he had spent time in that pasture. So we thought, okay, well, why are we covering the body? Obviously, she can't handle it. So I thought, well, it's going to be nighttime. What does it matter if the body is covered or not? And my horse died a peaceful death, so there was nothing traumatic there. He just looked like a sleeping horse. So we thought, okay, well, then let's uncover the body. The moment we uncovered him, she came right up to his body, calmed down, totally peaceful. And so it was clear to me, okay, you're not ready for the body to be covered. And horses identify through sense of smell. So my guess is that she could smell him, but if we covered him, it was harder to smell him. And the smell of him gave her security. So that's an example of slowing down. So I was moving at a pace of, okay, let's cover the body. And she's going, oh, hold on there. I can't handle that yet. So we slowed down, uncovered the body, let her be with the body a full 24 hours uncovered. And then it was the second night where she was okay with us covering the body. Something else I did is in this picture, you see this red fleece hanging on the fence. So that was something that when my horse was dying, we just laid it on him. So it has his hair on it. And because it has his hair and his scent on it, I left it out for probably a couple weeks so that if she wanted to smell it, she could. And there was times she would stand at the red fleece and she would just have her head low right up against it. And I'm sure she could smell him. Now, there was another time with horses where another horse died in the herd, and the owner of that horse was new to death, so she hadn't experienced any, and whereas I had, by that time, had experienced 4, so I could say, hey, here's what you can do, but I wasn't there, and so what ended up happening was she buried the horse within hours of his death, and then she pressure washed all the mats. So now she cleaned the whole scent of the horse out of the whole barn area. You couldn't smell the horse anymore. And what was interesting, luckily, I did tell her, I said, you know what, let the whole herd come and see the body, smell the body, have time with the body. Like don't shortchange that. Make sure they have time with the body. Because if they have time with the body, it gives them time to integrate what has happened. And the times I've done that, then the horses tend to be calmer. And the times I have not done that, because I wasn't aware of it, then that's where for weeks afterwards, they're still calling for the horse that had died. So she did allow the herd to have access to the body that afternoon. And then after that finished, then she buried the horse. And then she pressure washed all the mats. So when I came out, everything's spotless. There is no more body. So I never got the chance to see the body. I was hoping to, but I thought that's okay. It's not my horse. And when someone's in a grieving process, you know, it's not good to be asking things of them. So I just let that be. But when I let this paint mare up into the barn area, she was calm because she had been able to see the body. And but she went and sniffed every inch of the barn area where he ate, where he rubbed his rear end on the post, where he pooped piles, everything. And she went to each spot sniffing it. And interestingly, she was not alarmed by it, but I could tell she was searching for him. She was like, where is he? Where is he? Like he used to be here, but he's not here anymore. So just something to be aware of. Horses identify through smell. And so I like to resist the urge to clean up too soon, but let things be there so that there's time for their body to integrate the loss. There's even now time for me to integrate the loss. So when I would come out and see this red fleece hanging on the fence, that was actually comforting to me because his hair was still on it. And so there was still some part of him still there with me. So that really helped me slow down and allow my internal reality that I've lost this horse on an emotional level, be able to integrate that with the outside reality that his body is no longer here. So what does it look like to pause and take time with the body? So I will sit down right next to the dead horse or whatever animal it is, and I will draw pictures. I'll talk to them. I might sing. I might pray. I might bless the body. It's like whatever speaks to you, do that. And the other thing is, as you experience more deaths, you start to figure out what really works well for you. So another example, this is a human example of spending time with the body after death. I knew someone who had a stillbirth, and she held her baby all night long, and then just traced every little contour of the face, of the fingers, of everything, like taking in her baby. And then she said, you know, there came a point in the morning where I realized this is a body, and it's okay to let the body go. And but it was a felt sense inside of her. It wasn't her head saying, oh, you've been with your dead baby now 2 hours. Okay, time's up, move on. It wasn't that. It was, no, I'm going to spend time with my baby as long as I feel the need to. And then when I don't feel the need to, then it's okay to move on and move to the next step, which was then let the baby's body go. So the same can be true of our animals. If I tune in to myself and stay, and then of course there'll be this niggling thought, oh, you've already been there for 5 hours. You should go now. And if I hear the word should, I don't listen to it, because should is my intellectual mind telling me what I should and should not be doing. And my intellectual mind is not my heart, but my heart knows how long it wants to be here. And sometimes we don't know how long it wants to be there. And we go, uh-oh, what if I'm there like for 24 hours or 48 hours? What if I never do anything again? I'm stuck here forever. I will say in all my experience that it's never happened to me. But there is a moment where I worry about that. And then I go, oh, that's just a worry. Let me come back to my body. Let me come back to my heart. Let me just stay here and feel. And let me just be with my horse and talk to my horse, or whatever it is that I want to do with the horse. I've known some people who will groom the horse after it's died. If you want to take a clipping of the mane or tail, that's a great time to do it. You really find what gives you comfort, and whatever gives you comfort, do that. Okay, something else in all of this is I had a guinea pig that died once, and I dug the hole myself. And I really like digging the hole because it's something concrete I can do. And then when I put her in the ground and I was about to push the dirt over and fill the hole, these two huge tears dropped out of my eyes. I mean, they're like an inch big. I've never seen tears that big come out of me ever. It was just like, wow. And that was my body. And tears release, or I'm sorry, tears clear toxins from the body. So crying is good and healthy. And so I just noticed that. And then a moment later, I thought, okay, let me just pause here a moment. And then I took all the dirt, and I can still feel how warm it was in my hands. And I pushed it into the hole, and it felt so good in my hands to push the warm dirt in. At the same time, I'm incredibly sad that I was burying my guinea pig. So those two things coexist. This feels really good to feel this warm dirt. This is really comforting to me. And I'm incredibly sad over what's happening here. But just the act of burying the guinea pig myself was a way to help process the grief, was a way to help my internal emotions process the loss of the guinea pig. Okay, are there any questions so far on any of that? Or if there is, are there any in the chat that so far?
No
Okay.
questions. There is another share which I can read.
Sure.
I was intrigued to listen to this topic as I suddenly lost my first rescued mare 3 years ago and was blindsided by the depth of grief I felt. She was my heart outside of my body. It's taken me much time to work through it. I still grieve her. Since then, I have put down 4 others, and each one layered the loss.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Yes.
As I am involved with various equine rescues and hope to have my own small sanctuary for rescues in the future, I know this is part of that life and something I need to prepare for.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I 4 horses died in the space of 5 years for me. And it got to the point by the fourth one, it's like, okay, I'm done here. Like, I can't keep doing this. I got to take a pause. And each horse death, I went through my process, which I'm just going to describe in detail to you today. But there came a point at number 4 is like, okay, I need a break. Like, I emotionally cannot keep doing this. And are there horses in need? Yes, there are. Am I being called to do it right now? No, I'm not. So it's okay to take a break and let the emotional toll to be able to process all that before I just start layering on more, if at all possible. But yes, it is hard. It is so hard. And when you keep having more deaths, it becomes harder. But I will say, learning to process the grief for each one so that you can open your arms to another one, that is possible. But also, it's okay if you reach a point where you go, you know what, I need to just take a year off. It's okay to do that. So, okay, so I'll keep going. And as people have questions, please put them in the chat. Okay, we have one more photo here. Okay, another horse under the tarp. This horse also died on a Friday. And so we had to wait till Monday. But the temperatures were a little warmer, so a stench developed after about a full 24 hours. I sat with a deceased horse in the field the day she died. And it was the next day where it was going to start raining. And we were worried about the tractor getting stuck in the field. So we thought we better move the body. So I moved the body sooner than I would have, just because of the practical things going on. So we moved her up here, and then we covered her because it was warmer temperatures and decomposition, and the smell was starting to happen. But what's interesting is this other horse here, who he was really good friends with her. This is the new spot. He stayed for the next 2 or 3 days until her body was picked up. And the smell did not deter him. He just was happy to be right next to her. He wasn't stressed about it. That's just where he was. And then when her body was picked up, he let her go. Wasn't a problem. But he was essentially with her body for 3 days before the body was picked up. So he had plenty of time to be in her presence, to feel her, to smell her, all of those things, so that when the body did leave, there was no stress response in him. I think if the body left immediately and he had no time to be with the body, I would have seen a different response from him. It also gave me time to be with the body. Although I will say the smell was rather strong, so I did not feel called to sit next to the horse for days on end, like I had done with other horses, simply because the smell, it was too much for me. But I was very happy that this horse had that time to just be with his pasture mate that he was really good friends with. Okay. So the next thing is, what do you do in the days, weeks, months following the death? Okay, so I'm going to give a handful of different things. No one thing solves anything, but there are different tools I have used, and all of them in combination, you find what works for you. So flower essences, I don't know if anyone here is familiar with flower essences, but essentially this is a very crude explanation. Say you take a plant, you cut the leaf off, put it in water, let it sit for 2 days, and then now the water is the flower essence. That's really not a good explanation to give more justice to what's actually happening there, but that's just a very rough understanding. Flower essences can't hurt you. You can put them in the food or the water or on the tips of the ears of the animal, even for yourself. And it's for an emotional issue. So when I first started rehabbing senior horses, I had a holistic vet who said, "Oh, flower essences are great for emotional issues." And I thought, okay, that's nice. I don't know anything about horses and emotional issues. At that point, I was brand new. And so I thought, well, I'll just save that for when there's an emotional issue. Well, a few years later, there was an emotional issue because my horse's pasture mate died, and he was visibly depressed for about a week. Like he would just stand in the corner of the field, head low, and not do anything. And so when I saw that behavior in him, I remembered what the vet said about flower essences. So I thought, oh my gosh, this is the emotional issue she was talking about. So this little book is the 38 flower remedies of the Bach flower essences. And they're readily available. Typically, we can get them online and also like in a health food store. But each flower essence has a description to it. And then you can read the descriptions and see what fits the situation for yourself or for your animal. And so I read through the flower essence descriptions, and I found a couple that I thought related to my horse. One was grief and loss, and then a couple other ones. And so I went out and I thought, well, I'm just going to let him pick. I'll hand each one to him and see what he does. So I put one in my hand, let him sniff it. And then one of them, he tried to bite it out of my hand. The other ones, he didn't try to bite it out of my hand. So I thought, okay, well, I think you must want the one you tried to bite out of my hand. So I went to look at the name on the bottle, and it said grief and loss. And so I thought, oh, okay, you're grieving. Like that's just what came to me. And so took a drop out, put it on the tips of his ears, and then he licked it off my fingers voluntarily. And I thought, oh, okay, you really do want this. And so that first week he wanted it. Each time I came out, by the end of the second week, he didn't want any more. And his demeanor had changed, and he was a little perkier, more his normal self. And so I thought, okay, good. I did what I could. I'll use flower remedies for myself when I'm grieving. And some days I'll forget, and then I'll go, oh yeah, I totally forgot. It's like, oh, gee, I must be feeling better. I mean, even though I'm the one feeling these things, sometimes grief can be overwhelming, and it's hard to know, well, how do I really feel today? And so I'll find flower remedies that speak to me, and then I'll have them every day. And then there'll come a day where I totally forget. It's because my emotional insides are changing and the grief is processing. Okay, so now here's the next one. I do funerals when horses die. I thought, well, people die, I do a funeral, so why not do it for a horse or other animal? I've done them for guinea pigs. I've done them, any animal I lose, I do a funeral. And the funeral is an opportunity for a place for grief. It's a place to have a sense of community and support. And it's also an opportunity to help our inside emotional reality integrate with this external reality that our animal has died. So I'll do an opening song or a prayer. I'll have readings. I'll make a slideshow of the horse's life. And I just enjoy spending time doing that. And even spending time doing that helps me reflect on their life and really honor their life. I'll write a eulogy, the appreciation circle. So if I have a group of friends who come, what I'll do is have everyone have an opportunity to say something. And one thing you can do is you can take a ball of yarn and you hold it, and then you say what you want to say, and then you throw the ball of yarn to someone else in the circle, and then they have that string of yarn, and then it ends up making a web by the time you're all done. But it's a really beautiful thing to create a sense of community and of people honoring the animal that has died. And it just feels really good as a human being to feel connected to people in grief. Then I'll have a closing prayer or song, and then I'll have a reception afterwards. And that's just a sample of what I have done. You can make it be your own, however you want it to be. It's really what speaks to you, what speaks to your heart, what speaks to your relationship with the animal that has died. And I find I love funerals. Like I do one every time, every single time. And it really helps me process the grief. Okay, this is the Grief Recovery Handbook. This is one of my favorite books ever written. And I've done the Grief Recovery Handbook. It's a very specific set of exercises to do to process grief. And it is so thorough that I have done this at least 10 or 15 times in my life for different things I've lost. Probably done it for like about 8 horses, several people. Even if I lose a job or there's a divorce or some other big loss where your life really changes significantly and there's an emotional reaction, this book is wonderful for helping to process that so that you don't have to stay in the pain. You move through the pain and you feel the pain, but then it also integrates so that you can have joy again and not be stuck in pain your whole life. Sometimes people will say when a horse dies, oh, they're running free and they're no longer in pain. And it's like, well, that might be true. But the reality is we human beings who lost the horse, we're in pain. And the Grief Recovery Handbook really speaks to how do we tend to our heart, feel the pain, and help the grief process move through us and then be able to go on living. And so in the case of like when you're having multiple horse deaths and you're rehabbing or you're at a rescue and you're dealing with some really tough things, I highly, highly, highly recommend the Grief Recovery Handbook for every single loss you ever experience. And even if you're not having to deal with horses dying all the time, just anything in your life, because you don't have to carry it. You don't have to carry the pain your whole life. You can process the pain, integrate it. And there comes a point where I move through it and I feel it. And on the other side is the joy. I don't just get to go to joy. Joy comes as a natural part of the healing process of feeling the pain of the grief. So I highly recommend this book. And it is probably the one thing that has allowed me to do 4 horse deaths in a row. If I didn't have this book, I wouldn't do it. I would not do it at all. So I highly recommend this. Are there anything in the chat? Any other questions or comments that have come in?
No, but I know there are a few people who have logged on.
Oh,
Folks
okay.
at the beginning, Mary did offer that if you would like to share anything related to this topic, even just an expression of your love for an animal, that's totally fine to do into the Q&A button. I don't think you have a chat option. Mary, I do want to put a time check that it is quarter of.
Yes, and we have to stop by 4, so we have time for questions.
Um, yeah, we can go a little
Roughly.
over.
Roughly. Okay. Okay, perfect. Okay, so let's go to the next one. So when I do a funeral, I make my own invitations, and this is a creative outlet. So I highly recommend finding a creative outlet to express your love of your animal. And so I made these invitations out of special paper, and I would take a week to make these things. And I just love spending the time doing it. I get to think about my horse. I get to make something beautiful that honors her. And I've done this for every horse that has died. And it's just the creative outlet is very healing. Other things you can do for a creative outlet: drawing, painting, writing, um, listening to music, any music that helps you cry, or even making your own music. I also got into haiku poems. So haiku is 5 syllables, 7 syllables, and then 5 syllables. So then I would take a sheet of paper and I would brainstorm all the words about my horse, all the good words, all the ones that were challenging, everything, every experience I ever had with her. And then I'd have all the words on the paper, and then I would start to group them into 5 syllables, make a 5-syllable phrase, a 7-syllable phrase, and then this poem would come out. And I did one on this horse, and it ended up being like 15 stanzas, but it covered everything I felt about her and everything I felt about her after she died. And it was really moving for me to even read the poem because it helped me feel more deeply all these things that she meant to me. And it's the feeling the emotions in our body that when we feel them and acknowledge them, they can move through us and they don't get stuck. Okay, so here's some more self-care tips. I'll touch on all of these. The physical body touching the earth, highly recommend it. So barefoot, feet on the ground, or laying on the ground with your heart on the ground, or anything where you're touching the physical earth, something that holds your body so that you're not holding your body, something bigger than you is holding your body, where you can sort of just surrender into it, relax into it, can be very comforting. Another thing is that movement moves emotions. So walking, running, biking. I mean, I suppose you could ride a horse that's still alive. Anything where you're moving your body, movement will move emotions through your body. So that is so helpful when grieving, to move it through the body. You might cry, that's okay. I would say that's even better, but you don't want to go to where you don't move and you don't cry, because then everything will be stuck and then it gets more painful and worse. But if you have movement, the emotions will move through your body. So tears, I mentioned earlier, remove toxins from our body. So I highly recommend crying. You cannot cry too much. Culturally, our culture wants people to stop crying because they can't handle seeing someone cry. But I highly recommend crying and finding a place where it's safe for you to cry and no one's going to stop you. And tears are healing. So if you need help crying and tapping into the deeper emotions, I like to find music that helps me cry. And each time a horse has died, it's always been something different. It's been a different song, because each horse that died from me was a different relationship, different circumstances. And so there were nuances to it. And so different songs would speak to me. Something else when we're grieving is that we need to eat, we need to sleep, and we need to rest. And we probably need to sleep and rest more than usual. And that's normal and actually needed. And sometimes it's more than what we may feel comfortable letting ourselves do. But I'm just here to say, when you're grieving, schedule in more time to sleep, schedule in more time to take naps. Don't go at Mach 10 doing everything that you used to do before they died. Your body needs time to sleep and to rejuvenate and to integrate this loss. So it's okay to take that time. Hugs from people. I'm just going to talk about this. Hugs from people. If you can find someone that you trust that can give you a hug for like over 30 seconds, where you just relax into their arms, then someone else is holding you, that can be really comforting. So if you have that opportunity, I highly recommend it. And then I tell, for me, I don't like the other person talking. So I say, hey, could you just hold me? I might cry, but please don't say anything. I just need to let myself cry and feel. And some people can actually do that. And when they can, it takes about a couple minutes. It depends. My body will know when it's done with the hug, but it will recalibrate the nervous system. So our nervous system, when we're out of sorts, we need another nervous system to help calibrate ours. And so having a hug for over 30 seconds where I just totally relax and surrender, that can help regulate my nervous system, which is healing for me and helps me metabolize the grief. Clean out your closet. Okay, clearing the calendar, that sort of goes along with allowing yourself time to sleep and rest and allowing yourself time to grieve and not booking yourself too tightly. The cleaning out your closet. So when a death happens, a lot of times it's out of our control. Like we can't control that. But if I clean out my closet, I can clean out my closet. I might even clean out my purse or find something to clean for just, 5 or 10 minutes, a place where I have control over what's happening. So I can't control the world. I can't control that my animal has died. But there is one thing I can do, which is I can clean out my closet. And this might seem a little silly or something like that, but I will say this: when I'm grieving and I feel like everything's out of control because I can't control it, cleaning out my closet feels really good. So I'm just looking for things when I'm grieving that can just give me a little bit of comfort, bring me a little bit of peace. And the bonus is my closet is now clean. And then the last one here is tapping into your spiritual practice. So if you have a spiritual practice, go to it. If you don't have one, I would recommend getting one. And for me, I talk to God. And when I talk to God, I put all my emotions on the table. I don't hold back. I don't censor. I put it all out there. Because I found that when I say exactly how I feel, even if it's messy, even if it's not nice, but I have a safe place where I can say how I really feel, then I can get it out of me. And then I find peace after that. So I find that very helpful to me. Okay, I have one more on things we can do to bring comfort for ourselves. T-Touch wraps. T-Touch wraps. So Linda Tellington Jones is the founder of T-Touch. If you want more information on her body work and the wraps, you can go to ttouch.com. But they have wraps for people, also for animals like dogs and horses. So this one here it's an ace bandage. It's not stretched tight. It's just in contact with the body, so it's not loose. And it makes an X on your back, and then you bring it across the front, like from shoulder to shoulder. And then the bottom one secures at the waist from hip to hip on the front. But it's like being held. So when you put this on, it's like, oh, wow, I have better posture. I feel my body. It's actually comforting. So if I'm really stressed and I'm having a hard time just being at peace, I'll put on a T-Touch wrap. And a lot of times within 15 minutes, I will feel much better, much clearer. I can think more clearly, and my stress level has come down. So I highly recommend T-Touch wraps for people, dogs, horses. And you put it on for as long as you want it on. And then when your body goes, oh, yeah, I want it off now, you'll just know. It's not an intellectual decision. It will be inside. You'll feel, yeah, it's time for this to go. And then you just take it off. Okay. So here's a summary of everything we just talked about, just if anyone wants to see it in one big long list. Out of all of these, the top big things I do are the grief recovery handbook and the funeral. Those are the two big ones. And then all these other ones, I also do them as well. But all of them together for me is how I process grief. Are there any questions? Anything else that's come on?
No questions currently. There is someone who says, "Thank you for sharing these resources. It's been messy to navigate so many losses. I will order these."
Yes. Yes. And when in the grief recovery handbook, they talk about all the losses of your life, basically. And when you come into realization of, oh my gosh, I got all these losses I got to deal with, they talk about how to prioritize, well, which loss do I work on first? So the grief recovery handbook is a good resource, especially when you're dealing with multiple losses. Okay, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so these last two questions. This one is what to do if you couldn't be there when the death happened, but you wanted to be there. The good news is you can actually recreate the moment, and the nervous system will accept that. It will actually heal just by recreating the moment. So an example of this is there was a woman whose husband died and she wasn't able to be there. And she used to always have tea with her husband in their living room. And so what she did was she set up tea for two in her living room after her husband died. She set the table just how she would if he was there. She made the tea. She had an empty chair for him, even though he was dead. And then she sat down and had tea with him. She imagined him being there. And then she said everything she had wanted to say, but she didn't have the opportunity to when he was alive. And she found that really healing. Like she got to have that last conversation in that way. So there's another woman, another person died. She couldn't be there. They were dying in hospice, so there was a vigil going on, and she couldn't make it to the vigil. And then the person died. So she decided to recreate the vigil in her house, and she just got a big pillow, laid it on the floor, put a blanket over it. That's going to be the person who died. And then she sat next to it, put all these candles around, and then she held the vigil how she wanted to, had she been able to, before the person died. And then that was really healing to her. So when things happen and it's not how we wanted it to be, or I wanted to be there and I couldn't be there, we can recreate the moment, and you're acting it out, and it's in your imagination as well. You're imagining the person to be there and talking to them or whatever it is you wanted to do that you didn't get to do. And it can be very healing. I have done this with horses when horse deaths have not gone how I wanted it to. It was wonderful, and my imagination is quite vivid. So I started having full out conversations with the horse. She talked back to me, and I got to say everything I wanted to say. And a lot of times things happen and it's outside our control. And maybe we didn't know what to say, or we couldn't be there, or we couldn't do what we wanted to, but later it comes to us. The good thing is that we can recreate it and then experience the healing that comes from it. Okay. Okay, so the next question is what to do if you've done everything we've just talked about. You've done the grief recovery handbook, you've done the funeral, you've done everything, and you're still stuck. Like you feel like you're still carrying this big weight around, and no matter what you do, it's not enough. So this did happen to me one time, and I don't wish that on anybody because it's terribly difficult, and it feels like in that moment for me, it felt like I had no idea if this would ever lift. It felt like it was just there. And so I had done the grief recovery handbook. I did everything. And then I'm sitting here going, okay, this isn't working. I still feel terrible and I don't know what to do. And then I remembered my Aikido training, and in the martial art of Aikido, you turn toward everything, whether you like it or not, you turn toward it and you give it a hug. You basically embrace it. And so I thought, okay, well, I guess I feel so terrible. I'm just going to turn toward this and I'm just going to feel it. I'm just going to feel how terrible I feel. And I'm just going to focus on feeling that. And so what worked for me is I went and sat in a church every morning before work for an hour. And there was a Station of the Cross of Jesus' body being taken down from the cross. But the artist did beautiful representation of the other people in the scene and the expressions on their faces. And I looked at their expressions, thought, oh my gosh, look how terrible they feel. I go, that's how I feel. So I would sit in that church and look at that Station of the Cross for 9 months, every morning for an hour, and I would just feel how I felt. And then when I closed my eyes, for me, in that moment, the whole left side of my torso was black, like in my mind's eye. And I thought, okay, God, well, I guess I'm just going to sit here and feel this. I don't know what else to do. Don't know when this is going to end, but I'm just going to sit here. And so I did that. And for several months, and interestingly, a few months into this practice is what it became. The horse that died, he all of a sudden was there in my mind's eye, and it just totally shocked me. And I looked at him. I said, well, what are you doing here? Like, I said that to him in my head. And he said to me, it's safe here. And I thought, oh my gosh. And that just made me cry. It just moved me that and this is in my heart. This is in my heart. He was telling me I was safe. And so even though how he died was out of my control, I felt helpless. But in that moment, I felt acknowledged that even though things went that way, that I was a safe person. So I continued to sit in this church. I thought, well, if he pops in there, who else is going to pop in? So now I was curious. So I still felt terrible. I still felt this big black hole inside me. And I still felt helpless. I still felt all those things. I thought, you know what? I'm just going to keep feeling it because I don't know what else to do. And a couple more months went by, and then Jesus himself showed up and conveyed to me that he saw me. He loved me. He loved the horse that died. Was sorry that what happened, how it happened. And that was so transformative to me that I actually now at this point, I'm so thankful for that experience, because that has then given me a level of comfort, another resource I didn't have prior to that. So when these big painful things happen, the best advice I have that has worked for me is I turn toward it. I don't know when it's going to end, and I don't have control over that. But my body, the human body, it can handle feeling pain. It can. And it's designed to be able to handle it. And it's okay to feel that, to find a space where you can feel that. And then I surrender to feeling it for the rest of my life if needed. And what I've found so far, it's never gone on for the rest of my life. It's gone on for a while, and it's painful, but it's not for the rest of my life. And so I just surrender to it and trust that the more I feel it, the more I acknowledge it, then it will start to move and transform and change. And that's what did happen after that horse died. But it was a 9-month process. It didn't happen overnight. And it was also after I had already done the grief recovery handbook and I did the funeral. So I was doing all these things. And then the last thing left was, I just need to feel this every day. So I created space to feel it every day. And then I went on with the rest of my day and did my job and went to work. But then the next day, first thing I did in the morning, go back to that church and I would feel the pain. And then I just got curious about what was going to happen because I didn't know. And what's interesting is that pain and joy are very closely related. So we can cry tears from pain. We can also cry tears of joy. And so when someone's crying, it could be pain, it could be joy. You almost have to ask them to really know. And I will say that I found the more I allow myself to feel the full range of human emotions, even on the painful side, I will say what grows right alongside that is the capacity for joy. And I would say, from my experience, what's at the center of the deepest pain is joy. But don't tell me that when I'm in pain, because that doesn't help, because then I think I got to go get joy. I can't go get joy. What I can do is I can just turn toward the pain and feel it, as long as my body needs to. And when it's a really, really big loss, it's a big loss. So it's a lot of grief because it's a big loss. So of course it's going to be big. Of course it's going to take a lot of time. Yes, because that relationship meant so much to us. And so the grief is a testament to how much we love. And when it's a huge loss, so when you have that heart horse, it's a huge loss, the grief will be huge because the love was huge. And so allowing time and space for yourself to feel that, as long as you need to, is a good thing to do. Okay, so in closing, um, grief is a normal response to a loss of any kind. It can be the loss of a loved one, an animal, a divorce, a job. Maybe I moved. Any of those are losses because our way of being in the world has been disrupted. And so grieving is allowing and feeling the feelings in our body, letting them move through us, and allowing our insides to catch up with this outside reality that our animal has died or this person has died. And it is because we love that we experience grief. And so grief, it's hard, it can be painful, and sometimes we wonder if it will ever end. But I like to turn that on its head and go, oh no, grief is the last gift my beloved animal gets to give me. And I'm going to take every single gift my animal's going to give me. So the last gift my horses gave me was experiencing the grief of the loss of them. But in that, when I started turning toward it and feeling it and letting myself feel all those feelings, it started transforming. Other things started to happen in there. And then there comes a point where I just feel total joy when I think of my horses. But many of them, it was very hard when they died. So grieving, it's part of being a human, and it's good to grieve, and it's good to find support around you of people who understand. And it's also good to allow our body to tell us what we need. And then sometimes our intellectual mind goes, okay, that's enough now, no more. But our heart's saying something different. And so you can just say thank you to the intellectual mind. Thank you for trying to help me. I'm going to listen to my heart right now. My heart needs more tending. And then to give myself that. So that concludes this webinar. And if anyone has any questions or comments about anything, please put it in the chat. This next slide is just my website, seniorhorserehab.com. Basically, everything I've learned about senior horses, I've put here. I offer online classes, and there's also the resources tab you see here. There's several resources there on senior horse care, but there's one page on death and dying. So if you're interested in learning more about the death and dying and the stages of dying, you can find articles there. So that concludes everything. Is any chat or questions?
Yeah, thank you, Mary, so much. There are a few comments. Two folks express their thanks for the resources and just, I guess, the information in general for themselves and also to pass along to folks that they know. There is a question.
Okay.
How would you suggest slowing down in a
Yes.
situation where the choices aren't entirely up to you? For
Yes.
example, my first mare was at a working therapy barn. We closed the farm for the day. I was able to spend a couple hours with her and allowed the herd to come in as well. However, the next day I had to go back and work in the same space running the programs. We had to walk others through the loss. as she
Yeah.
was a therapy horse in the program. I've never
Yeah.
felt the space to grieve as I needed.
Yes. I hear you. Yes. That is so hard. I just feel when I hear that, I just feel my heart. I just feel like, oh yes, I feel that. Um, One thing is that culturally, the Western culture does not allow time for grief. The default is not there. It's like, oh no, we got this program, we got to run it. We can't have these things happening. So I'm just going to make up my own scenario of how I would do it, and then address how do you do it when this doesn't happen. My own scenario. So I'm running that program. Then I just say, you guys, okay, animals died. Here's the process. It's 3 days. We have 3 days of festivities. And then I map out what's going to happen. And next week we'll return to regular programming. And then I walk all those kids, all those participants. This is how you grieve the loss of a horse. This is how you're going to lose things in your life. This is how you do it. You allow 3 days. Now, it doesn't have to be three, it can be whatever, but that's just a way to think about it. So if I ever ran a program, I would from the get-go say, hey, by the way, you guys, what's your plan for when your horses die? They probably don't have one because no one wants to think about that. But then if we put into place, what's the plan for when they die? Oh, then right there, we're going to map out, hey, when they die, we're going to have a funeral on this day. We're going to have a appreciation sharing circle on the day before. We might have something else where you get to come and see the body on the other day, like maybe the day that happens, you can do that. So those are things I would do if I had control over a program or educating people on, hey, horse is going to die. Let's plan 3 days of how to allow people to process that, because how we process that loss will affect them for the rest of their lives. And little children remember their first loss. And if they don't learn, the way we learn how to process a loss is by someone teaching us. And a lot of times I've known people who've gotten to adulthood, they've never had a major loss, so they've never learned. And so then they're asking, how do I do this? Okay, so there's that. So now, since everyone doesn't do what I want, because the world does not revolve around me. So yes, I'm in this scenario where other people are making decisions and it affects me, and I'm limited in what I can do. So that's where I go to recreating what I wanted. So let's say, can you read again how she described the horse, what she was able to do?
Um, Able to spend a couple hours, and the horses were able to spend time with that um, animal
Okay,
as well. Yep.
but she was wanting more.
I think so. The question was, how do you suggest slowing down
How do
when?
you, okay, slowing down. Well, if I have control, then yeah, okay, whoever wrote the question, if you can add to this, because you can only slow down if you're in that environment as slow as they're going to go. So if they're going at the tempo they went, but it wasn't slow enough for you, then that's where after the event, I might go make my own funeral, and I'll go invite my friends. I may not even have it at the place because those people may or may not be open to it. They might be, but I would go create a funeral for myself so that I can slow down and process this loss. So then I make a slideshow about that horse. I um, draw pictures about that horse and bring it to my funeral. I invite my friends to that funeral who knew the horse, because other people are grieving that horse too. And one day is for a lot of people not enough. So they would probably welcome having a funeral after the fact. I'm not sure how to, when that is actually happening, how would you slow down in that moment because other people are calling those shots? But I would go with creating a funeral later. I would also go with if that's not enough, like you do that and you still feel things in your heart, then I would ask myself, okay, what what do I want that I didn't do? Did I want to talk to the horse longer? Did I want to pet the horse longer? Did I want to go for one last ride? What was it that I was wanting that I didn't get? And then when I answer that question, then I would recreate it. So let's say I wanted to go for one more ride. Okay, I'm making this up. So then I might go on a trail ride, and then I don't know, I'm ride a friend's horse and just tell the horse before I get and say, hey, this horse died. I really liked him. And would you give me a ride? And we're going to make it be in honor of this horse. And so then I take this ride on this trail horse, whoever it is, and I do a ride in honor of the horse. Something where I can recreate it and my body's moving. It's doing something in honor of what I wanted. Something like that can help. I hope that answers the question. If I've missed the mark, please put it in the chat and I will direct me if you have a further question on that.
I don't know. I think that was beautifully said, Mary, and very thoughtful. Um,
Okay.
I don't see any other questions in the chat. And I'm really glad that we were able to work through them as the webinar went through. That's
Yes.
really special. And I know for me, or I guess really anyone who has gone through this before or they're about to go through it, this isn't an easy topic. And, we really appreciate you being here, sharing your wisdom, your experiences, and there, what works for you. Hopefully some things will work for other folks here. But thank you again for sharing these resources and for your time.
You're welcome. It's my pleasure. And I'm happy to share because it is very hard. And, but there is hope. There's ways to process grief and move through it. So thank you for having me.